Well, what a day it's been. It's not often where the NFL is like the NBA when it comes to these rapid fire transactions, although I feel that more and more recently it's been turning into that, which is great for those of us who cover the league. And it's not just transactions, it's social media posts, it's rumors, and it's just the general table setting for what's going to be the new league year. And that's coming up in just a couple days. How about this? You thought the whole Myles Garrett situation died? Well, Diamaro Lenore is here to entertain us. Diamaro Lenore is awesome, by the way. I mean, he's a guy with a big personality, and I think that the 49ers cornerback room, right now, they've got Demo, who talks a lot. They've got Renardo Green, who doesn't talk a lot at all. He's quiet, silent assassin, Renardo Green. Well, the 49ers have that tandem, and Diamaro Lenore is going to do his talking. This wasn't the only talking that he did today. He also seemed to be recruiting DK Metcalf, who requested a trade from the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I highly doubt that Seattle will trade DK Metcalf within the division, but you know that Diamaro Lenore and DK Metcalf, they've gone back and forth on the field. Demo even posted this. Bro, you can't leave Seattle. You're the only one that made that game fun. And he called Jackson Smith-Njigba a crybaby. We're going to play that video in a little bit. Anyway, a ton happened today. Maxx Crosby is now the highest paid defensive player in all football. Also the highest paid non-quarterback in all football. Remember when Nick Bosa signed his contract a couple years ago worth $34 million annually? And it blew away everything on the defensive side. It blew away everything on the non-quarterback side. Last year, Justin Jefferson decided to take aim at Nick Bosa's contract, not at other receiver contracts. He wanted the very high watermark, and he got it at $35 million a year. And now Maxx Crosby of the Raiders has signed for $35.5 million per year. So Bosa lost the title of highest paid non-quarterback last season, and now he has lost the title of highest paid defensive player. So much for Maxx Crosby being traded, right? That's something that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Everybody's like, well, why don't they trade for Maxx Crosby? And I said, well, the Raiders haven't said that they're cutting Maxx Crosby. Have they? They haven't said that they're shopping Maxx Crosby. Have they? The Raiders are under what seems to be much more competent leadership. It seems that Tom Brady is running the show in Las Vegas, and cutting or trading or just parting ways with Maxx Crosby would have been an idiotic move that the Raiders weren't prepared to make. They wanted to re-sign him, and he's aboard for a 3-year deal, which is worth $35.5 million annually. Maxx Crosby is one of the hardest working players in the entire NFL. When I went out to the joint practices with the 49ers and the Raiders a couple years back in Las Vegas, I got out there early, on the field early before anyone else. Maxx Crosby. Some of the young guys on the Raiders very intelligently decided to come out as well and work through some warm-up drills with him and pick his brain. I mean, he is just such a dedicated worker, the attention to detail. He does deserve every cent that is coming his way. And now Nick Bosa can be motivated to get back to the top of the heap. It's not like Nick Bosa has played poorly over the past couple seasons. He's still top 5 in pressures and sacks. But if he wants to cash in one more time at the very top of the market after this deal is done in a few years, well, then Nick Bosa is going to have to deliver a Defensive Player of the Year type of effort, type of season coming up into the future. Joey Bosa still on the table, by the way. When we were talking about Maxx Crosby over the course of the past couple weeks, as that just rumor seemed to never subsist. You know, it was just a fantasy. People wanted Maxx Crosby on the 49ers. It wasn't going to happen. I think the All-Star break tweet, right, when he thanked the Bay Area and people refused to acknowledge that he used to play for the Oakland Raiders. Maybe that's why he was thanking the Bay Area. But I think that's what caused people to push all in on this idea of the 49ers, this fantasy of the 49ers picking up Maxx Crosby. But that was not going to happen. What is more possible is Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa's brother. And we're going to find out here over the course of the next few days. In a week, teams have to be cap compliant. And a lot of bonuses are due as well. I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to take a look at Joey Bosa's contract right now on Over the Cap to see if he's got something triggering here, which would force the Chargers to make a move sooner. But either way, before the 2025 season starts, there's a good chance that the Chargers, who have a $36.4 million cap hit with Joey Bosa, there's a good chance that they're going to move on because he just hasn't delivered the kind of availability that they want out of the kind of financial commitment that they're going to make. He's got a $12.3 million roster bonus. Roster bonus typically means, unless there's an earlier trigger date, that it doesn't come due until he actually makes the 53-man roster. So there's no April trigger date on this contract. The Chargers don't technically have to let go of Joey Bosa yet at this point, but this is much more realistic. Even a trade here is much more realistic if they want to offload that salary. And of course, if Joey Bosa has freedom to pick where he goes, there's intrigue because he's Nick Bosa's brother. And it seems to me that there's been at least some curiosity from both of those guys regarding playing together on the same team in the NFL. But it obviously has not happened yet at the same time. The Ohio State careers did technically overlap, but Joey was significantly older than Nick. So you got the end of Joey's college career with the very start of Nick's college career. Anyway, Maxx Crosby, off the market, never was on the market. Myles Garrett, technically not on the market, but if Diamador Lenore had his way, well, Myles Garrett would definitely be available. The search for that high-priced edge rusher continues if the 49ers are even interested in that. I think that this is one spot where the 49ers would be willing to spend, obviously not an exorbitant, inefficient amount, but I think that you can potentially find good value with Joey Bosa, just because he has been hurt and he might be willing to sign at a discount. And in the case of Myles Garrett, it's fascinating because if and when the Browns do relent and decide to trade him, he, in his trade request, did not say that he wants a new contract and more money. Everybody's assuming that he's going to want a new contract if he's traded. But Myles Garrett, I mean, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's delivered that kind of career already. What's missing for him is winning. He's going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. So that leads me to believe that he might be willing to maybe not play on his existing deal if he's traded, but he may be willing to play ball with an acquiring team, especially a team whom he believes can win, can deliver what the Cleveland Browns haven't as far as team support goes. I think that he'd be willing to work with that team as far as making a contract manageable for the acquiring team. The be-all, end-all for San Francisco, and I've talked about this so many times, is cost efficiency. If they don't see cost efficiency, they're not, or at least potential cost efficiency, they're not going to make the signing because the last few years, they have decided to go above that threshold of cost efficiency in their rush to try to kick down the door and win a Super Bowl. And I've got an article coming out tomorrow on the San Francisco Standard that's going to examine this, and it's going to examine some of the intel that I was able to pick up at the Combine. I went back to see how the 49ers were talking over the past couple years, either entering free agency or talking leaving free agency, because they didn't spend a whole lot in 2022. And John Lynch was talking about reining back the cash spend in that year. In 2023, when I asked him about signing Javon Hargrave or just a star defensive tackle, he said that we probably won't do that because we'd have to pay out the ears to do that. But then they, less than a month later, they spent out the ears to actually sign Javon Hargrave. And then over the 2 years after he was saying they've got to rein back spending in 2022, the 49ers went on one of their more aggressive spending sprees that we've ever seen from the football team. So, I mean, there's been so much difference between what John Lynch and the team have messaged in the offseason and what they've actually done. But I think that when we follow the actions, which is what they've actually done already this offseason and heading back to last offseason, cost efficiency is definitely the path that they're choosing here in 2025. And at many points in 2024, especially, that definitely was not the preferred way of business for the 49ers. They just wanted to throw money at a problem and hope that it would disappear. Christian McCaffrey wants a new contract. All right, let's throw some money at that problem. Hope it disappears. Trent Williams wants more money. Well, we'll throw some money at that problem. Let's hope it disappears. Brandon Ayuk, that was probably the headlining example, right? Contract standoff. If you're the 49ers, you're in between a rock and a hard place. You're trying to win a Super Bowl, but you also want to make sure that you give Brandon Ayuk a deal that you'll be able to disentangle yourself from in case things go wrong. You want to make sure that everything is structured in a way that allows you to pay your quarterback the following season. They actually ended up finding a compromise that worked for them for the Brandon Ayuk situation. And I'm going to talk a whole lot more about this tomorrow, but they have that trade window that exists this month if they do want to jettison the contract. It came with risk, though. Wow. Thank you. It's an hors d'oeuvre. Oh, is that salmon?
Yeah. It's not salmon candy.
Thank you. I didn't expect that. We're going to have to eat here in a little bit. I've got a plate. I got to talk. This is going to be a little crunchy as I eat it. So we're going to keep it sitting out here for a little bit. But anyway, they got that escape clause in Brandon Ayuk's contract where they can trade it by April 1st without incurring the 2025 payment, the $22.8 million option bonus. So they were able to find a compromise that worked for them where they didn't overextend themselves too much with Brandon Ayuk, but they still did spend a whole lot of cash in 2024 without a big return on investment. And that generally leads any business to sit back and reevaluate how they're spending their money. And I think that's where the 49ers are this offseason. And if they're going to spend big coming up on free agency, or if they're going to spend big through the trade market when they acquire a bigger contract, and Myles Garrett, obviously technically not on the trade market, but everybody, I think, assumes the Browns are either stupid right now or they're bluffing and they think that might change. But whatever expenditure the 49ers do choose to make, it's going to have to be bang for their buck. And you can get good bang for your buck with a high-priced expense. It's not necessarily just spending on small deals or mid-range deals. You can get bang for your buck with an A-list player. It comes down to A-list players having to play like A-list players. So if you're paying somebody at that level, they need to be delivering at that level. And the players who the 49ers have been paying at a higher level, including Javon Hargrave, who haven't been delivering at that level, when it hasn't been commensurate, the 49ers have been making adjustments here over the course of, this goes back to Eric Armstead in 2024. So don't rule out Myles Garrett, but I've said since the start here that I think just based on the Browns' stance, it's much more likely they deal him before the deadline next offseason. And if that ends up being the case, then the 49ers better be in contention ahead of the deadline next offseason. Then they can think about bringing Myles Garrett into the fold if the Browns are selling at that time. But Deommodore Lenoir seems to be excited about it right now as we speak. Deommodore Lenoir, I mean, and we're going to play the video here in a little bit. Why don't we just do this right now? Because DK Metcalf requested the trade from Seattle. We're going to be talking about the wide receiver market correction that I think is happening right now, right in the midst of the Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk trade drama. Samuel has been traded. Brandon Ayuk, that rumor is going to continue to persist. But DK Metcalf, same agent as Deebo, requested the trade from Seattle today. And this is how Deommodore Lenoir reacted. We're going to credit Brad Graham again for this one. He was able to pick this video up off of Instagram Live. Deommodore Lenoir talking about DK Metcalf, trying to lure him to the 49ers, jokingly, obviously, and also talking a little bit about DK's teammate with Seattle.
Y'all cannot let DK leave. Y'all can't do that. Who I'm gonna have, how am I have fun out there? Najigba, he be crying all day. He cry. That's all he do is cry. Ref, he holding, ref. Oh no, don't hurt me. Crybaby. Bro, I'm not worried about JSN. I'm not. He know that. He know that. He know that. God, he know that. For sure. But back to DK. We can't let you leave, bro. Unless you want to be a Niner. Unless you want to be a Niner, that's the only way. Like, but then again, I like going against you. So, because you the only receiver that's gonna be out there really on that time. Like, you really like, you gonna come try to hit somebody in the face. Then I gotta show you, I ain't no buster. Hit you back. Then we just going at it. Nah, I ain't recruiting. It low-key had me mad when I just got that text in the morning. They talking about he about to leave Seattle. That just got me hot.
So that's Diamondo Lenore this morning, called DK Metcalf's teammate a crybaby. That adds another little bit of a layer to this 49ers Seahawks rivalry. Maybe we'll see DK back with Seattle. Basically, what's happening right now with DK is really interesting because his contract and his journey has followed a parallel with Deebo Samuel's. They have the same agent, Tory Dandy. So back in the 2022 offseason, DK and Deebo were both eligible for a contract extension, and it was being negotiated by the same guy, by Tory Dandy, who also happened to have A.J. Brown. So it was the trifecta in that 2022 offseason. Brown ended up being traded from Tennessee to the Philadelphia Eagles, so he signed his contract first, new deal with the Eagles, and he's since signed another one, and he's a Super Bowl champion now. So A.J. Brown, I think, has been the most successful out of those three receivers in signing the contract. Then in the summer, DK signed a couple days before Deebo, and I think Tory Dandy handled the situation well, but Deebo entering the final year of that contract negotiated in 2022, DK entering the final year of that contract negotiated in 2022. DK Metcalf on his deal has an $18 million base salary and a $4 million option bonus still remaining. I don't know when the option bonus exactly kicks in, but it will come to DK Metcalf at some point. So that is $22 million on his contract, not guaranteed, for this 2025 season. Then, like Deebo Samuel, he's scheduled to be a free agent in 2026. So obviously, he wants a new deal. He's performed better than Deebo Samuel over the past few years. It's been about a consistent 1,000-yard season for DK Metcalf year in and year out. He was at the negotiating table with Seattle for a few days, and today decided that Seattle probably isn't going to offer him what he wants. It might be posturing, or he might be really serious. It's probably a mix of both. He's probably still trying to get what he wants from the Seattle Seahawks, but I'm sure that he wouldn't say no to a trade to a team that would want to pay him the money that he's looking for. But DK Metcalf has requested that trade. And there have been so many fun battles, including the one a couple of years ago that led, wasn't quite a brawl out on the field, but I think there was a cheap shot against Fred Warner, and the Seahawks thought that Fred Warner had delivered a cheap shot first, and Diamondo Lenore got involved, and then Demo and DK got kicked out of the game. Unfortunately, Deebo Samuel, who was also a fiery part of those football games against the Seattle Seahawks, is no longer going to be part of it. But we could be looking at a situation next year where neither DK Metcalf nor Deebo Samuel is in the NFC West. And the whole thing, between the Deebo Samuel trade, Christian Kirk today was released by Jacksonville. He hadn't performed ever since the first season of that contract. And that contract really is what got all of this started, right? The receiver market blew up when Christian Kirk signed a deal for $18 million annually in 2022 with Jacksonville. All of us were wondering, what is Jacksonville doing? Christian Kirk, for $18 million. And then it was just the floodgates opened after that. And that was the offseason of DK, Debo, AJ Brown. Receiving values skyrocketed all the way to the point where we saw this past offseason, like the one before, Justin Jefferson signed for $35 million annually. So at one point, the high water mark in this market, and it wasn't that long ago, was in the low 20s. Now it's at 35. Part of the whole bluster was Brandon Ayuk signing at 30. Tyreek Hill was the first to cross 30, but the market just went insane over the past couple years. Is this DK Metcalf trade request, which shows that Seattle's not willing to pay DK what he wants at the current moment, is combined with the Debo Samuel trade, which obviously indicated that the 49ers weren't willing to extend Debo Samuel, combined with the 49ers' willingness to at least listen to Brandon Ayuk trade offers a year after signing him, combined with Christian Kirk being released, combined with Devontae Adams being released by the Jets. I mean, they had Devontae at a high price. I think $36 million what was going to be too much for the New York Jets. But is all this stuff, is this a market correction after the wide receiver market has absolutely blown up over the course of the past couple years since 2022? I think it is. I think these are at least the first signs of a market correction. Now, we're going to find out more next week when a lot of the receivers, and there's a growing list of mid-tier veteran receivers, guys who might be a little bit past their prime age-wise, but this growing list of mid-tier veteran receivers is going to be available on the free agent market, and we are going to be able to apprise exactly what the value is. Are these teams, a lot of these guys are coming out of college much more pro-ready than they were in the past. And because of that, you feel, okay, we can plug this guy in right away. The veterans may not be quite as valuable as they were before, just because of how college football and the communication on the field of college football is working. It is a little bit more reflective of the pro game. But the 49ers, I think almost certainly are going to be interested in a mid-tier veteran at the very least in free agency. And we've talked about Keenan Allen. We've talked about Robert Woods. We've talked about Darius Slayton. I think the big question is, what do these guys go for in free agency? Is it going to be somewhere between 5 and 10 million? Are they going to have to overpay for somebody like Keenan Allen? Is that going to cost 15 million? In which case the 49ers might not see the efficiency there anymore. And it all works hand in hand with the plans for Brandon Ayuk moving forward. And as we know, the 49ers haven't ruled anything out on that front. So I think this is a very evolving situation, but the more data points we get at wide receiver, the more I tend to think that this market for the veterans, at least at the very top end, is cooling down. And it's going to be fascinating to see what's next. Obviously, everybody wants to talk about the quarterback market, which ultimately might be connected to the wide receiver market. That's the centerpiece of your passing game, right? And the quarterback market has exploded over the years too. If it starts cooling down now, if Brock Purdy being on this island this offseason of being essentially the only, top tier, bigger name quarterback who is in line to receive a deal, if him being on a negotiation island and not part of a cluster of 3 or 4 other QBs looking for new contracts, if that's what causes this market to slow down, that would be terrible timing for Brock Purdy, but it'd be very interesting timing for the league, because anytime you have market movement, especially drastic market movement that we've seen at quarterback, at receiver, with these salaries skyrocketing, there will be a correction that comes at some point. And nobody's really sure what's going to cause that correction. I think you need a nudge in a certain direction. But maybe this is the offseason for the receiver and the QB market corrections. We will see. Another big piece of news today was this coming out of Philadelphia. Zach Bond, the linebacker who a lot of people hadn't heard of before the 2024 season, but then ended up being graded higher than Fred Warner. He was the top graded linebacker in all of football this past year. The Eagles have re-signed him at $17 million per year. So Fred Warner's at $19 million per year. Roquan Smith is number one at $20 million per year. Zach Bond is now a top 5 paid linebacker at $17 million per year, which leads me to believe that Dre Greenlaw might be offered a lucrative deal elsewhere. I think that's what Dre Greenlaw is holding out hope for. I think that the 49ers would prefer Dre Greenlaw to take a prove-it deal with them, but it might be wishful thinking for San Francisco, just given the way that this free agent market is working. And this is not just at linebacker. We've seen at offensive line, Alex Kappa, I believe he went to Humboldt State, the offensive lineman. He signed today with was it with the Bears? Signed today no, it was with the Raiders. 2 years, $11 million. This guy gave up more pressures than any other guard in all of football last year, and signed for $5.5 million a year. Just gives you an idea of how expensive free agency is. So it's extremely unlikely that Aaron Banks is back with the 49ers in 2025. And today there was a report that came out from Tom Pelissero that Aaron Banks is going to be in line for a contract worth 18 to 20 million annually, which is just wild to me. But as soon as I saw that Alex Kappa got 5.5 million per year, well, then you get it, right? The Rams signed a pair of guards to over 15 million annually last year, and they didn't have metrics better than the middle part of the league. Aaron Banks has had mediocre metrics. They haven't been terrible. They haven't been great. He's a great guy in the locker room, but you could totally understand, given the way that this market is going, given the way that free agency always brings in overpriced valuations, you can actually totally see the $18 to $20 million. I said this morning, I was eating a breakfast burrito and almost dropped it when I saw that Pelissero wrote that Aaron Banks is going to be commanding a contract from $18 to $20 million. That is just a wild amount, but the 49ers are going to be very happy to just take the discount with Ben Barch. He's going to be making an 18th or a 20th of that price. Ben Barch's contract is worth a little bit over $1 million fully guaranteed. And over his 65 snaps, I know it was a small sample size last year, Aaron Banks was playing better than Ben Barch. Here's the 49ers target that we need to talk about. It is likely that the Washington Commanders are going to release Jonathan Allen, their defensive tackle who's been a Pro Bowler in the past. Now, his play has fallen off over the course of the past couple years. He's 30 years old now. He was a Pro Bowler in 2021 and 2022. So it wasn't all that long ago that Jonathan Allen was at the top of his game. Washington no longer willing to pay him, in all likelihood, that $16.5 million salary, which is what he's due, and they don't want to give him a big extension. Remember that Adam Peters has taken over Washington, the former 49ers executive. So a lot of times you'll see the new regime clean house of players from the old regime, especially players who are declining from the old regime. The 49ers were interested in acquiring Jonathan Allen as part of the trade with Washington, sending Deebo Samuel that way, but they were unable to come to terms. It became a little bit too complicated because Jonathan Allen, again, he is set to make, I'm going to get this out exactly, it's around $16 million this season, pulling it up on Over the Cap. $15.5 million in base salary, $1 million in per game roster bonus money. That's total $1 million plus $500,000 in workout bonus money. So it's exactly $17 million set to come Jonathan Allen's way this year, which was about the same amount that was set to come Deebo Samuel's way. The 49ers obviously did not value Jonathan Allen at the same level that the Washington Commanders valued Deebo Samuel. Therefore, the 1-for-1 trade was not possible. Washington said, fine, we'll take Deebo at 17.5. Unclear if they'll try to sign him to an extension or if they're going to wait that out. If Deebo's okay with waiting that out, Deebo doesn't have as much leverage because he's coming off of a bad season. But going the other direction, when the 49ers were trying to acquire Jonathan Allen, the numbers obviously didn't work out. Their valuation for Jonathan Allen probably, I'm guessing, is closer to $6 million. Because remember last year when the 49ers had Eric Armstead at an $18 million number and they offered him $6 million, that was their pay cut from 18 to 6. Eric said no, and he signed with Jacksonville for 14. That's another example of free agency being very, very expensive to deal with. So Armstead left to go sign for more money, as was his right. I think that the 49ers bottom end evaluation for Jonathan Allen will be about the same as it was for Eric Armstead, who also was a declining player, had some injury issues for the 49ers. That's primarily why they decided to first ask him to pay cut and then move on from him. But we never found out how high the 49ers would have gone for Eric Armstead in 2024. And he ended up signing with Jacksonville for 14, which is obviously a whole lot more than $6 million. But I think $6 million is what Eric Armstead says the 49ers' initial pay cut offer was. We don't know what their final offer was. We don't know if that insulted Eric Armstead so much that the 49ers never even made a final offer, and he just went ahead and signed with Jacksonville. But I don't think that the final offer would have been 6 for Eric Armstead. I think the 49ers would have kept him on board. In my head, I always thought maybe $10 million would have made sense. You come in at 18, you offer 6, you leave at 10. It seems that would have been a natural progression for any negotiation with Eric Armstead, but we'll never know. So if they can get Jonathan Allen in the building for less than $10 million, I think the 49ers might be interested in it, because we know that they were interested in bringing Jonathan Allen over in the Deebo Samuel trade. Who would be interested in seeing Jonathan Allen? Because, here, we'll open up the depth chart. The 49ers, it will be very interesting to see if they run this back with the same defensive line, or if they decide to scrap this 2-year experiment a year in. I'm actually going to open the Build Your Roster tool because it was built for moments like this. What a graphic. They did such a good job with the animation department. So here we go. 49ers Build Your Roster. We're going to create a copy, open it up, and go from there. All right. We can go to the defensive line. I gave all this optionality along the defensive line. You can cut Leonard Floyd and save about $8 million cap dollars. Yeah, I'm just going to cut everybody on the 49ers defensive line and open up some money. Yetur Gross-Matos saves you about $8 million as well. Malik Collins, the defensive tackle they acquired in the trade, saves the 49ers about $3 million. Jordan Elliott saves them a couple million. All right, we have 4 new spots opened up on the defensive line. How are we going to fill them? Well, we could fill them with Myles Garrett. Nice. We can bring in Joey Bosa. Nice. And now we're going, guys, and I hope you realize that I'm joking with the magnitude of, or the volume of some of these big moves, but one of them can definitely happen. I am now looking for Jonathan Allen, who is not released yet. That's why he's not on here. But Jonathan Allen, I think, would come in again, probably at a price. Let's see what I have Jaron Reed coming in for. 12 million. Allen would be a little bit cheaper than that. DJ Jones. I think Jonathan Allen might be a DJ Jones level price. And, people I think want DJ Jones back, right? If you want DJ Jones back, you can raise your hand in the comment section. But DJ Jones, DJ Reed, the 2 DJs, Robert Saleh is obviously familiar with both of those players. And they both would come at positions where the 49ers need to add. I think they need to add a defensive tackle. I think last year, even if they were happy with Malik Collins as far as pass rushing went, he was in the top 6 in pass rush win rate for defensive tackles. But Jordan Elliott's not much of a pass rusher at all. He's more of a run stopper, and the 49ers didn't stop the run effectively enough last season. It might not have been Jordan Elliott's fault, but this was the number 29 run defense, and if you've got a dedicated run stopper in the middle, it's got to perform better than that if you're going to be getting the efficiency that you want. So I think defensive tackle is a definite position of need for the 49ers. We obviously talk about edge rusher opposite of Nick Bosa being a position of need for San Francisco, and Jonathan Allen fits that defensive tackle spot. I mean, he still is a capable pass rusher. He's not in his prime anymore like he was in 2021 or 2022. This is not a $17 million player, but is this an $8 million player? I think the 49ers might think so. At least $6 million. And we'll see what the market looks like for Jonathan Allen if and when he is released, when that does come next week. This show is brought to you by Public Rec. Public Rec, the game changer pants from Public Rec. The ones that you can wear in an office meeting and you'll also be comfortable with at home. Comfortable enough for the couch, sharp enough for the city. For a limited time, you can get 20% off Public Rec by using the code Lombardi at checkout. Just head to publicrec.com, use the code Lombardi, and you're all set. Oh, and when they ask you how you found them, be sure to mention our show. It really helps us out. Upgrade to Public Rec and feel the difference. So we've gone through a lot of this stuff. Deommodore Lenoir talking to Myles Garrett on social media. I mean, Lenoir's been at the forefront of this recruiting process. Unfortunately for him, it currently isn't up to Myles Garrett on if he gets traded. That it's up to this guy named Andrew Berry, who is the GM of the Browns. But Deommodore Lenoir certainly hadn't been shy about his desire to get Myles Garrett into a 49ers uniform. Then we've got the DK Metcalf trade request. We got an entire market correction at the wide receiver position, which fittingly includes the release of Christian Kirk from Jacksonville today. We got Maxx Crosby passing Nick Bosa for the biggest money of a non-quarterback in NFL history. He actually passed Justin Jefferson for that, but he passes Nick Bosa for the biggest money for a defender in NFL history. And we got Zach Bond signing that deal with Philadelphia, which is not a good sign for the 49ers and Dre Greenlaw, because Dre Greenlaw is probably going to get offered some money by a team that really wants to dip into his potential as a linebacker, even though the durability definitely wasn't there in the 2024 season. Earlier today in the 49ers update, we talked about Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw likely being gone for the 49ers. Hufanga's an almost certainty. Dre Greenlaw, well, there's probably a little bit more wiggle room there, and it depends on what the market is for him. But I think from the 49ers end, they've decided to move on at that safety position. Then you wonder who that first-round pick is going to be, or if they trade back a little bit in that first round. We talk about Nick Emanwari out of South Carolina, Deebo Samuel's alma mater, perfect 10 relative athletic score. Could it be a dream middle field safety for the 49ers? I mean, complete 5-tool football player, but somebody with real speed on the back end. Right now, Malik can move, but he's a hitter. He's a thumper. Jair Brown's a little bit slower. Remember Jair ran that 4.6 at Penn State, coming out of Penn State in college? The 49ers don't really have the 4.3 eraser type on the back end, especially if they're relying on Malik Mustafa to play a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. So it's going to be fascinating to me to see if the 49ers continue to stock up in the safety room and if they feel the need to stock up with big-time speed. Nick Emanwari even has talked about playing some offense. His ability to play offense. It's a little special package for me in there. I guess he played some offense in South Carolina. I play a little receiver in red zone, jump ball. I feel pretty confident about coming out with that. All right. Well, I know Kyle Shanahan doesn't like to run fade passes, but if they do draft Nick Emanwari, maybe that he could be in the – maybe Kyle Shanahan can start calling fade passes because Nick Emanwari says that he can play in the red zone. Mike just sent me that. All right, it's been a super, super busy day. Could finish it up with talk about Jonathan Allen. If you feel this is somebody the 49ers should target, well, buckle up because I think that they might. I think that this might be in the cards for San Francisco moving into the 2025 free agency period. It does entail Washington releasing Jonathan Allen if they can't find a trade partner, and then it would entail the 49ers reaching agreement on price with Jonathan Allen, which I think is much lower than his current $17 million base salary. Any questions? We got good questions, then I'm happy to answer a couple of them. Otherwise, I want to get out to dinner. I'm in Central Time right now. And we could figure it out from there. A lot of people saying, please, no Jonathan Allen. What at the right price? Why would you say no to a guy that was a Pro Bowler just a couple of years ago that might still have something in the tank? I mean, I get it. Javon Hargrave is not a good comparison. Somebody's saying this is going to be another Hargrave. They paid Javon Hargrave $21 million a year. They gave him a whole new mega deal. There's a big difference between $21 million a year and $6 million a year. So it's everything is. Yeah, I was about to say everything is price based, and that's exactly what Tony C said. Everything is price based. You have to look at value relative to cost in this league. So we will absolutely see how this turns out from a market standpoint, but value doesn't just mean going after young players and draft picks. Value can also mean going after older players. Somebody like Joey Bosa is not that old, but an older player with an injury history, because you're able to get him at a lower price to where that risk is worth it, where the upside is worth what you're paying for. So that's how the 49ers are thinking heading into this offseason. We're going to get into this a lot more. You guys can share all your thoughts in the comment section. I've got to go finish an article. Wanted to go 40 minutes. We will talk to you later tonight.